Hey friends, welcome back to the studio. So in this lesson, we're going to focus on updating our routine records. In the previous lesson, we were able to read and display our routine records from the routine collection. Now we want to be able to navigate, to be able to view more information and allow us to update or delete, which will be in the next lesson, our specific record. So when we navigate from this, it should direct us to this screen, which we're calling the update routine screen. And if you notice, the update routine screen is equivalent or it's similar to the create routine screen. So we're not going to start coding this screen from scratch. We're just going to pick the code from the create routine screen and proceed from there. So let's go to the project itself. So this is where we stopped in the last lesson. We were able to read routines and display. So the next we're going to do is go to the screens folder and actually create this file, update routine.dat. And the next thing I'm going to do is just come here, create a stateful widget for this class and call it update routine. As you recall, it depends on the material package. So we're going to call that. You can just copy from. We're going to be using almost everything that's in this create routine and remove what we don't need. So first I'll import all the packages. Next thing, I'll pick the requirements, arguments, and also add the constructor. The constructor is already there. Required. Next thing, we'll come and pick everything that's within this create routine state and put it in the update routine state. So this and still here. Then we come to this update routine screen and paste it. So there shouldn't be any errors because they're just duplicated a class. The only difference is that the class name has changed. So we now have our update routine. We can close the create routine.dat file. So the one thing we can do is change this text on our app bar to read update routine. Or we can say view routine, whichever that seems fit. And then now we want to go to the main.dat file. This is where our routines are being displayed. So we want at the point of, we want to create an action, call to action on this list tile so that when a user clicks on a routine, it's able to take them to this update routine screen. So how we do that is on the list tile, it has its own function that can do that. On top, and then we use the navigator to actually navigate to the specific class. Navigator dot push context material page root builder, add the context, then we add the update routine and we'll pass it a few parameters. So let's add this at the top. import package routine app screens update routine.dart. So our error should go, but it won't leave because we are supposed to pass a few arguments here. It depends on two arguments actually, but first let's put the one because here it's one, then I'll explain where the second argument comes in. So we pass the Isar widget dot Isar. Great. So there's still no errors. So things are working out. So what we want to do is simply load our app, be able to view. Since I did a hot restart, I'll need to add some few routines. We add those routines, and when you click on a specific routine, it should direct us to the update routine. So let's go to the screen. So here's our screen. So currently I did a hot restart, so I need to create new records again. So we come here, if you recall, we created a few categories. Let's add home, work, school. Then we come here and create a few records, washing, start time, AM, Tuesday, add, work, send emails, start time, 8 AM on Thursday, and school, submit assignment, start time 7:30 p.m. and set Saturday. Then we go back. I'll need to reload our screen. And we're able to see the routines that we've created. For that part where I've had to like refresh the app so that it can pick, there's a tweak we're going to do within this lesson or the next one on how that we're going to use a future builder, so that at the point where we create a new record, by default when we go back, it will be able to refresh on its own without us doing a hot reload. Okay, so now we have our routines. So we want, at the point of clicking, it takes us to the update routine screen. So let's do that. Great, so we have our update routine. So this is what we're going to play around with. So what we want to basically do is, number one, if I click on this routine that has the routine title washing, when I click on it, it should be able to pick for me the category of that routine, be able to display it for me that text called washing, display it for me the time and also the day of that routine. And then we're going to change this add to update. So let's first do that. Let's be able to display the information, populate the information of that specific routine on these fields first, and then we can proceed. So let's go back to our project. Great. So this is where the second argument I was talking about that we need to add. So when we come here, update routine, when I click, I also want to go with the information of this specific routine, right? So that in the other side, I'll be able to now pick the title, the start time, the day, and the category, and display them on the specific fields. So to do that, we come here and say routine. We create our first. Best practice would actually create it here first so that it's expected, and then after that we we now go and add it on the main.dat file. So we say final routine, because the type that's coming on this side is the routine type. Final routine. And then we pass it on the constructor saying required this dot routine. Great. Now we go back to our main.dat. You will have a bug because it's now expecting a second argument. So we say routine, and then we pass this whole object, and then we'll be able to pick the specifics from the other side. So we just add it like that, and it will be detected, and we're good to go. So now when we come here on the, oops, we have a bug. Okay, let's see. Let me try and refresh. It's because we have changed something that, let's see, null checker. We have changed a parameter in, we have added a new argument on this update routine screen, and we on the app we were already on that update routine screen. So having updated it, it fails because the current class that's there only expects one argument, but now there's another argument that has been added which hasn't been passed from the main.dat. That's what, well, that's the cause of the error. But now we have refreshed and we're good to go. As you can see from the screen here, we're still right on track. So let's go back to the project and proceed. So now we have the information or the object of that specific routine. So we come here and now start using it. So what I'm going to do is, there's this read category. We still need to populate the categories on that, on this screen of the update routine. And then now we set the one that is specific for that routine. But we're going to use it somewhere else. I'm going to remove this first from here, and I'm going to show you where we're going to add it. But we want a new function that will set the information of this specific routine. So we come down here. I'm going to delete this add routine because we're not adding routines here. And we're going to get an error at this point where we're going to remove this function, and then we're going to change the add to update because we're updating routines here. So let's go back down here. This is a read category. We still need this one. So let's just come to down here and create a new function called set routine info, right? And this set routine info is the one that we're going to call on this on the init state, so because we want at the point of landing on this screen, we want you to actually get the information that we have passed here, set it on the different fields, on these different fields. If it's a drop down, if it's the start time, if it's a title, set them all up. So here is where we are setting them. All right, great. So to do that, we want first to load, let me click on this. We want first to load this category first. It should have all the categories, and then we set on top the one for this specific routine. So that's the first thing we'll do. And to do that, we're going to we're just going to call the function that I had just deleted, await read category. And because this is an await, we need to set our function as async. So basically that's what we're doing. So if I refresh my screen for starters, and we come to our screen here, when I click on this, as you can see, our categories have been displayed here. So we are right on track. But now we want the routine category. The category of this specific routine is what's going to be set on top here, right? But we still need all the categories, because remember, this is an update functionality. I may decide to switch the category from home to work or from work to school. So we still need all the categories displayed. So that's great, that's working. So let's go back to our project and set the rest of the fields. So we come here and say, so we have 4 fields to fill in. We have the title, we have the start time, and we have the day, and we have the category. The category, there's something I'm going to show you on how to actually load the categories, load the category of this specific routine. It requires 2 lines of code. Before that, let's just set the title, the start time, and the day. So to do that, we just say title controller, if you remember, .txt is equals to widget dot routine dot title, the routine that we had passed as an argument on the top. And then we pass the time controller dot txt is equals to widget dot routine dot start time. Great. And the last one is the drop down day is equals to widget dot routine dot day. So if we save this, do a quick refresh. Go back to the screen. So back to our screen, come here and click on this. So this one is washing 5:10 a.m. Tuesday. So when you click on this, washing 5:10 a.m. Tuesday, great. So it's actually picking the information of that specific routine. Now let's work on the category. I show you how you actually load the category of a specific routine. The reason why this is different from the other ones is because if you remember in our previous lesson back, we were connecting this category with the category collections using Isar link. So it's not as simple, it's not picked simply as the other properties. So let me show you how to do that. To do that, we first have to come here. You can either do it at the top or at the bottom. We say, we call a function, we call the widget, a widget dot routine dot category. So it's the same thing as this, but we have to load it. Use a function called load to first load it. And then after that, it's not as simple as saying drop down value is equals to now widget routine category dot load, because widget dot routine dot category, because it will come as null. So you have to first load it. Then after that, we're going to do something a little bit complex, because it's not also as easy as once it has been loaded, you just pick the value or initiate it to a variable. So what we're going to do first, we're going to get the ID of that specific category. Let me show you. So int, we're going to create an ID, get ID is equals to widget dot routine dot category dot value, sorry, category dot value dot ID. Remember the category. Okay, the reason for that, because it's expecting, we're setting a nullable, hoping to get a value from this. It has been loaded, yes, but it may come as null or not. But at this point, we're expecting for it to come with the information of that specific category in that routine. And now we want to get the ID. What is the ID of that category? You remember the category collection has two fields, the ID and the name. So we want the ID first, because remember we're incrementing our IDs. So it's not that easy to actually to get the information of the category using these simple processes. So it requires one to actually get the ID, and then we use that ID to actually set or pick from this category list and know what category this routine is in. So maybe if I let's close on this function, on this part, so that we can actually see it working. Maybe it will make much more sense. So the widget routine category dot value, this is how you get the value of that category. So it comes in form of an object which holds the ID and also the name. So if it's in the category of home, we'll see ID 1, category name home. Okay, but you find that in the drop down, when it's creating a drop down, like in our screen, let me show you. In our screen here, home is in index 0, but in the collection it's ID 1. So for us to be able to get this, it has to be the ID 1 minus 1 is equals to 0, so that you can get this value here. So going back to our project, now that we have gotten our ID, which we know, like if it's home, our ID is 1, we come here now and set the drop down value and say set state drop down value is equals to categories. Remember this in the read category, it sets the categories with all the categories that are there. So categories, and then we're setting it in the chances that it might be nullable or not nullable. So if it's not nullable, proceed to get ID minus 1. So in this case, if the get ID is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0. 1 minus 1 is, this is because of this, so I need to pass that. 1 minus 1 is 0, so we're getting categories indexes 0. If we say we get ID, the category value is work, and this only works if your category collection is using the auto increment. It allows Isar to do the auto increment. If you're setting your own ID, the code will have to change. This won't work for that. But because our IDs, you know, they're incrementing, so we know like home is at has ID 1, work has ID 2. So if I want to work on the drop down, I just take ID 2 minus 1 is equals to 1, because the drop down starts from 0. But in the collection, when setting ID from scratch, it starts from 1. So we just need to minus 1 so that you can get the exact specific category. So this may sound a little bit complex. It was difficult to actually make it as simpler as this. It seems it's not as easy as just saying widget.routine.category is equals to drop down value. It actually fails. And this load is very important because it has to go and load. If you don't load it, it will come out as null, even though you had already saved the category information. So let's try and save and refresh and see. So just take a minute. Okay. If you go to the screen, we have washing 510. Click on this. As you can see, it has selected the specific category, which is actually correct. Washing was on home, send emails is on work, submit assignment is for school. If you click on it, it will pick school. So we are right on track, which is really cool. And remember, this function over here is let me show you. Because we picked the whole code from create routine, we have that function that allows you to add categories. So that's already sorted. You don't need to recreate that again. It will actually create and store in the dropdown. So we're good to go. So now what we want to do, we have populated our data of that specific routine. What we want to do is now to be able to change, because it's changeable. We're able to change the way we were changing, but now we want to, when we click on update, it picks the updated information and updates it on the routine record of that specific routine. So to do that, we come back to the project. We come down here. Create another function called update routine. And this one will get a little much simpler. Will be done in a few. So I want at the point where we had our button update on the on press, it's going to call now this function, right? So in this update routine, we want to call the routine collection. So we say final routine, as we always do. Final routine collection is equals to widget.isar.routines. Great. And then now we're going to use, there's a function that we're using on widget.isar called write transaction. We have used it before in our previous lesson. So what we want to do is call it, and then inside it, we're going to set our new object with the updated, with any update that we have made, with our new update of text or update on our routine. And then we're going to push it to the routine collection based on the specific routine. It's not just going to be added, it's going to pick the routine ID and go and update the information of that specific routine. So to do that, we'll need an await processor. So let's add a sync, set our function as a sync. Then we come here and say await widget dot isar dot write transaction. Async. Then we come inside here, we want to get the information of that specific routine using the routine ID. And since we have all the information about that routine, we just say routine.id. So to do that, we say final routine, this specific routine that we're looking at or we're viewing right now. Go to the routine collection and get that routine based on the widget.routine.id. Yeah. So remember, our routine collection ID was one of the most important properties in there. So we're using it because it's unique. It's one that creates uniqueness for every routine. So after that, we now can pass. We can now say that this routine, we want to pass the title is equals to whatever we have changed on the title controller. We want routine, and then we want to pass the start time is equals to whatever we have set on the start time controller. We want the day, text. We want the day to hold the drop down day. And lastly, we want the category dot value to hold the drop down value or whatever category we've decided to change to. me close that. So this is a new object we want to pick, and after picking it, setting it up, we now say await routine collection dot put routine. And now what will happen is that it will go and override using the ID. If this ID was 1, it will go to that routine where ID is equals to 1 and override the old information with this new information. That's what updating is, right? So after pushing it, what we want to do, we want to navigate. We want to go back to after updating, we just want to create a user experience where after updating and it has gone through, let's take us back to now the routines again, the routine screen, which is in the main.dat file, right? So we say, what we just say is main navigator.pop. That's another navigator function that you can use to just take you back to the previous screen. Yeah, and we're done. So now let's refresh, and we should be able to not only view the information of that routine, but also update it. So we're going to refresh our screen. So just take a minute. So we're back to our screen. So we have washing, send email, submit. I can change washing and specify what do I actually want to wash and change the time and the day. So we come here and say washing dishes. And then I change the time. I don't do it at 5:10 a.m. I can do it at 6 p.m. And I think I will do it on it's on Tuesday. Let me do it tomorrow on Wednesday, the next day. Click update. And now the reason why you can't see the update that has been made is what I was actually referring to in the beginning of the video, where I want to create a feature builder on this. It's a small change we want to do on the main.dat so that any change that is happening, it just detects it without me having to do a hot reload. But let's just do a hot reload, and then after that we do it again after making an update on the main.dat file using the future builder, and it should be able to detect information on its own and update on its own. So if we refresh, you see it has actually updated washing dishes, changed the time, and also it has taken now Wednesday instead of Tuesday. So let's go back to the project and just close on that experience where we don't have to hot reload. It just picks the update on its own. This will be done on the main page. There's something called a future builder that will help us do that. So to do that, we go to our this column where we were building widgets. We're going to make a few changes on the build widgets function. First things first, we're going to come here and change this function. We want it to be a future. So it's able to check if there's a change that's happening. It will by default actually pick the changes and update on our widget. So now that we've set that as future, we'll have some bugs down there. So that's not a problem. Future list widget, build widgets. So list widget is equals to X is equals to that. For this, they're going to add an async because future goes with async. It should sync the changes that are actually made on its own without us having to hot reload. So here is where the future builder comes in. So what you do is will come here before the column. I'm going to add a new widget. Feature builder. Feature builder is actually not, it helps you create a widget, but I'm not sure if it's a widget per se. So let me comment this so that we can add some of the requirements that are usually in the feature builder. First things first, our feature builder wants to has a type of list widget, just like in our function here, list widget. And then inside it, it has some few properties that you need to set. First things is the future, which refers to the function that you want it to call, which is the build widgets. What do you want to be processed? And then we have the builder now, where we're going to build our widget, which we already have the column. So what you're going to say is that it has its own arguments, context, and snapshot. Snapshot refers to the data that's picked after this function is executed. So inside it, we say if the snapshot has data, please return our column, right? But now we won't be calling the build widgets anymore. We're going to say call the snap. The children will hold the snapshot.data. And we don't expect it to be null. All right. Else, because we need an else. Else just return a simple sized box or something. Just to leave it blank. Then we remove this. And that's how a feature builder looks like. So we're telling it, manage this. If there's a change in the build widgets, update it for us and set it on our column. Okay. So there are no bugs to be made. On the function, we've just made a small change in terms of the type of function, the data type of the function, what to expect. And then all we had to do is like change the widget by adding a feature builder on this column. So let's refresh everything now. We do the whole process of updating one routine and see if it actually updates on its own when it navigates back to the main page. So here we are, washing dishes. So let's go to, you can say send emails, send emails to John. But now I don't want to send it at 8 a.m. I want to send it at around 10:20 a.m. And on Thursday, let's just change this to make it a little bit interesting. When you click on update, oops, it hasn't yet updated. Let me check on, let's go back to the project and see what could be the cost of that. Let's see, we have the read routines. That's at init state. I think oh yeah. So we're reading the routines on the init state. The init state function is executed only once on a screen or on a class, right? But now we want to be reading those routines whenever there's a change. Yeah, that's what. So there's something I was also supposed to add here. I'm supposed to remove it from this point, right? Cut and add it on the build widgets. Yeah, that's what's causing the error. Async, but now we have to tell it. We're not just calling it like this. We want to await. We want to set an await. So we're telling it first wait, we read the routines again whenever there's a change. And when you read it, of course, it will now hold the new changes. Then after that, do the whole loop thing, okay? So let's do it one more time. As you can see, it's because we have done a hot reload, we're able to see the change that we've made. But let's do that process again. It should be able to do it on itself without a hot reload or a hot restart. Let's see. Great. So let me now use the third routine and change something. So submit assignment. So I can say something like submit a math assignment before dusk or something like that. And then we set a time. Let's send it at 6 p.m. And since it's Saturday, let's switch it to Friday. Then click on update. As you can see, we're now able to see our updated routine, and it's able to refresh on its own without us having to do a hot reload or hot restart. I hope that has made a lot of sense. So we've been able to do our update very easily. We've been able to, there's one thing we haven't done. I think we can try washing dishes. We can try and change the category, right? Washing dishes, let's say, what can we wash in these other categories? School, wash uniforms, and then we say update. So you see wash uniforms, and we just changed the title itself. And when we click, you can see now the category has changed. So our update functionality is working smoothly, and we'll be able to transition back to our main screen and see our updates easily. So I hope that has made sense. In our next video, we're now going to focus on the delete functionality, which in our app structure, you'll find that it's in the same screen of the update routine screen. It's just a feature here, and at the point of clicking, it should allow us to actually delete the specific routine. So that's all. See you on the next lesson.